Hello, this is part 37 of our comparative Bible study on the beginning of Jesus Galilean Ministry. During this part, we would like to discuss some of Jesus' response to the conspiracy to destroy him. Overall, this is our 77th New Testament Bible study. During recent Bible studies, we've been comparing three similar accounts from the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, which appear to be covering the same events. During the last Bible study, we discussed many of those recent events, which appear to have culminated in the Pharisees, which is a religious sect during Jesus' day, conspiring with the Herodians, which appears to be essentially the Roman government up there in Galilee, to destroy the Lord Jesus. During this Bible study, I'd like to discuss the event recorded in the next verses in the Gospels of Matthew and Mark. This event does not appear to be covered in the Gospel of Luke. So let's move on to the next verses in the Gospels of Matthew and Mark. In both these accounts, I've highlighted apparent similar information and similar colors as a point of reference. Let's begin by reading in Matthew chapter 12, verse 15. But when Jesus knew it, he withdrew himself from thence. So what was it that the Lord Jesus knew? As previously discussed, immediately preceding this verse, the Pharisees were conspiring to destroy the Lord Jesus. They held a council against him, and when Jesus knew it, he withdrew himself. As a comparison, let's next read in Mark chapter 3, verse 7, where it states, But Jesus withdrew himself with his disciples to the sea. Now, the Gospel of Mark doesn't explicitly state that the Lord Jesus knew, like the Gospel of Matthew does, but that doesn't exclude the fact that Jesus could have known. We know that he knew from the Gospel of Matthew. Both Gospels similarly state that Jesus withdrew himself, unlike the Gospel of Matthew, which said that Jesus withdrew himself from a place. The Gospel of Mark states that Jesus, with his disciples, went to a place, namely the sea. This is additional information in the Gospel of Mark that's not in the Gospel of Matthew. Next, we read in the Gospel of Matthew, and great multitudes followed him. Comparing what we just read here in the Gospel of Matthew to what's in the Gospel of Mark, we see that the Gospel of Mark included some more additional information. Here we read, And a great multitude from Galilee followed him, and from Judea, and from Jerusalem, and from Idumea, and from beyond Jordan, and they about Tyre and Sidon, a great multitude. Let's pause here for a moment. Here, the Gospel of Mark tells us who is in that great multitude. They were from Galilee, from Judea and Jerusalem. They were also from places outside of Israel, such as Idumea, which is Edom in the Old Testament, and Tyre and Sidon. We also know that there were people from beyond Jordan. Other than Israelites living in those areas, could the people from Idumea, Tyre, and Sidon been Gentiles? Continuing on in the Gospel of Mark, when they had heard what great things he did, came unto him. Here in the Gospel of Mark it says, they came unto him. Where did they come unto him? To the sea. Similar to this, the Gospel of Matthew states that they followed him. Then the Gospel of Matthew goes on to state, and he healed them all, and charged them that they should not make him known. The Gospel of Mark once again has some additional information. Here we read, And he spake to his disciples that a small ship should wait on him because of the multitude, lest they should throng him, for he had healed many, insomuch that they pressed upon him for to touch him. As many as had plagues and unclean spirits, when they saw him, fell down before him, and cried, saying, Thou art the Son of God. And he straitly charged them that they should not make him known. Here the Gospel of Mark appears to have some additional information that's not in the Gospel of Matthew, whereas the Gospel of Matthew appears to be briefly summarizing these events. Notice here that the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Mark record that the Lord Jesus charged them that they should not make him known. This is not the first time or the last time that the Lord Jesus would direct someone not to make it known. For example, in New Testament Bible Study 54, we presented some examples of this. Could the Lord Jesus in our current Bible study directing them not to make him known be similar to these instances? Moving back to our current Bible study. Now, the Gospel of Matthew has been referred to as the Gospel of the Hebrews, and as we've mentioned in previous Bible studies, it often has quotes. Here, the next part of the Gospel of Matthew reads, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, Now Isaiah the prophet here is Isaiah the prophet, and the verses about to be quoted are from Isaiah chapter 42. Let's next compare these verses in the Gospel of Matthew to Isaiah 42. Before we do, keep in mind what we said about the Gentiles here in the Gospel of Mark. In the Gospel of Matthew, we read, Behold my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved, in whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he shall shew judgment to the Gentiles. So how did the Lord Jesus respond to a conspiracy being waged against him? Did he just move on and minister and preach to even the Gentiles? From what we read in the Gospel of Mark, didn't it seem possible he preached to some Gentiles? Fulfilling this prophecy, Isaiah 42 appears to read similarly. Here we read, Behold my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. Let's move on to the next set of verses to compare. In the Gospel of Matthew, we read, He shall not strive nor cry, neither shall any man hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed shall he not break, and smoking flax shall he not quench, till he send forth judgment unto victory. After learning of the Pharisees' counsel to destroy him, did the Lord Jesus lash out and incite a violent response? Concerning these verses, could this be indicating that Jesus responded peacefully to the conspiracy against him? Isaiah 42 appears to be very similar to Matthew chapter 12. Here we read, He shall not cry nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. A bruised reed shall he not break, and the smoking flax shall he not quench. He shall bring forth judgment unto truth. Now, I'm not sure why Isaiah 42, which is translated from the Hebrew, uses the word truth, whereas Matthew 12, which is translated from the Greek, uses the word victory. The next verse in the Gospel of Matthew reads, And in his name shall the Gentiles trust. Now the next verse in the prophecy of Isaiah reads, He shall not fail nor be discouraged, till he have set judgment in the earth, and the owls shall wait for his law. I've read commentary indicating that this part, and the owl shall wait for his law, corresponds to, and in his name shall the Gentiles trust. Trust corresponding to the word wait, which underlying Hebrew word is sometimes translated as hope, and owls corresponding to Gentiles. Concerning Matthew chapter 12, I've also seen commentary indicating that this is a quote from the Septuagint, which was a Greek translation of the Old Testament around in Jesus' day. Notice how this part in Isaiah 42 that's in gray is not in Matthew chapter 12. When I looked at online versions of the Septuagint, words to the effect of those in gray were in Isaiah 42. So if Matthew chapter 12 is a quote from the Septuagint, it seems that those words would have been present. I'm not sure of the reason for this. Could it be that the part after Matthew 12:20 is more of a narration than a quote? Again, I don't know. Let's stop here for now. Lord willing, maybe we'll have another Bible study in the future. If I got to share anything good, it's a blessing from God. Goodbye.